Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a blood-splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
Boom shakalaka, and I am Count Jacula.
And today we're going to talk about Grafted, a body horror film from New Zealand from director Sasha Rainbow. This movie is about a lot of things. The Chinese immigrant experience, body image issues. It's even about mad science. But most of all, it's about the friends whose faces we stole along the way.
Yep.
So this movie is about a Chinese immigrant who has moved in with her aunt in New Zealand on a scholarship program. And her ultimate goal is to complete the scientific research her dad did before he died into some highly advanced skin grafting techniques. Now, mind you, the way this movie opens, he basically got killed while experimenting on himself with this grafting technique.
Yeah.
It literally sealed his mouth shut and he couldn't breathe anymore. So this research that she wants to get into is highly dangerous, but she wants to complete it because she wants to complete what her father started. And she also has a lot of body image issues because she has a very noticeable scar, which I'm not sure if it's a birthmark or if it's a scar from some sort of fire on her cheek. Either way, she's had it since she was a little girl, and her dad had it too. This is why both of them have become obsessed with this skin grafting science. But unfortunately, a lot of bad things happen along the way in this movie that just keep descending into a worse and worse situation, to a point where the movie almost kind of feels like The Substance light.
Yeah. Yeah.
But only so light. It still goes further than most other movies would go.
Yeah.
It just doesn't go as far as The Substance does in the last act.
Well, yeah. One of the things that's different about The Substance is, in The Substance, the main character is completely to blame for their own situation.
True.
100%.
There's a point where this character becomes more to blame as it goes on, but early on...
Yeah, early on, you're like, no.
Early on, she is very much a victim of various circumstances.
Yeah.
Later in the movie, she makes a lot of decisions that it's just like, no, now you're just digging yourself a deeper hole, to where it's almost kind of like The Substance, where you're just like, well, what did you expect to happen?
Yeah.
Ultimately, she was trying to do something for the betterment of mankind, even though it came from a very personal place and at times a very selfish place.
Yeah.
It's still a higher aspiration than, say, I want to be a star again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's a part of me that is like, okay, I guess there are some fates that are worse than death, right?
Oh God. Yeah. What happens at the end of this movie, we'll talk about in the spoiler section, but what happens at the end of this movie, there's a reason we're referencing The Substance. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
This is a true body horror movie, and it gets gnarlier and gnarlier the longer it goes.
Finds out that she can actually graft other people's faces onto her own.
Yeah, which becomes something she ends up doing more and more as the movie goes on. Sometimes the people whose faces she steals kind of deserved their fates.
Most of them do.
There is a point in which she starts going after some people that don't necessarily deserve that fate, but it's the only way for her to survive the situation. So it becomes a bit of a survival situation. So.
We also, there's this one death that happens that you feel kind of bad about.
Compared to the rest.
Yeah, compared to the rest. Yeah.
They're not a perfect person, but they did show growth in a way that none of the other characters necessarily did.
Yeah.
There is another character who was pretty innocent in the whole scenario. We'll talk about him.
Yeah.
In the spoiler section. He just feels like he was an accident.
Yeah.
To be completely honest.
Whoa.
But there are other characters, like, say, the mean girls at school that go after her, as well as her family members that aren't as nice.
Her cousin.
Yeah.
The movie really shines when she is taking on the identity of these other people.
Yes, and running around and pretending to be them. Because what's cool about that is you don't just have the actress playing her. All the other actresses in the movie, most of them anyway, have to play her too.
Yeah.
It's a really cool acting exercise throughout this movie, and is kind of like the horror movie version of Face Off.
Yes. You could argue the Face Off was pretty horrifying, but it wasn't a horror movie.
But just like the movie Face Off, it does have the fundamental problem that a good number of these characters whose faces she takes have such different like body heights.
Yes, yeah, different body types and heights that it becomes like, you know,
Yeah.
all right, movie, we're just gonna roll with this.
They try in the movie to do their best to try to like cover that up as much as possible. Like, okay, this character's blonde, so she goes blonde, yada yada.
Yeah. This girl's taller, so she's wearing platforms.
Yeah.
You know.
But ultimately, it would still be very noticeable if one day, like, this tall, skinny chick was replaced by a much shorter chick, even if she was wearing platform shoes.
Right. It's one of those, look, it's conceit of the movie, just roll with it.
You gotta roll with it.
Yeah.
It's much like Face Off. But I love all the gnarly practical effects in this movie. There is some digital effects done, in particular with the way the skin grafting she's experimenting with happens.
Yeah,
There's some like digital like compositing things happening, and it all works. It works fine with the movie. Earlier I mentioned that this movie's about the Chinese immigrant experience, but it's from a very particular angle.
Yes.
This movie is not just about like being a person from another country coming to a new country and having to live there. In fact, it doesn't actually go into that as much as it does this other element, which is coming to the country, meeting someone who has a similar heritage as you, but actually grew up in the country.
Yeah.
And them being completely self-hating to the point where they take it out on you.
Yeah. Where they've completely tried to turn their whole back on the heritage.
Yep. So when she comes and lives with her aunt and has to live with her new cousin that she has not spent a lot of time with, her cousin is so self-hating and sees all the things she doesn't like about herself in her.
Yeah, all the Asianness.
Yes.
You know?
That she spends the rest of the movie picking on her and getting her friends to continue to pick on her at school.
Yeah.
The body image issue thing is obviously, you know, like she's got the massive scar. She's also a minority in a culture that doesn't necessarily value her body type.
Yeah.
So she's got elements of all that going on with her own body image issues, hence really wanting to change her face.
Yeah.
Things like that. And the mad science is pretty self-explanatory too. It's what she's doing throughout most of the movie.
Yeah.
And she's like working with her teacher, who is a complete scumbag.
Oh, yeah.
Like completely like sleeping with one of his students scumbag.
Now, because this is a big, important thing for a lot of people, there is the question, does the dog die? No,
dog lives.
Dog doesn't die. Dog
so don't
lives.
worry about that.
Don't worry about
Don't
the
hold your
dog.
breath about that. Grafted is currently available on Shudder. I highly recommend you go check it out. It is very good. And with that said, let us talk about the spoilers so we can talk about all the other shit that happens in the second half of the movie that we vagued our way throughout the rest of this video.
So the second half of the movie is largely her cutting people's faces off.
Yeah.
And either to avoid arrest, avoid deportation, or get revenge.
Well, because the thing is the plot kind of shifts.
Yeah.
Her initial goal is to complete the study that her dad was doing so that the grafting can work and she can, like, you know, fix her face.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is she does end up ultimately achieving successfully grafting something.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out as the movie goes on, like, it starts to rot.
Yeah,
and,
there are problems with it.
It's temporary. There's some work that needs to be done. But at the time, she felt like she had officially accomplished it. But her teacher, who she's working with on it all, decides to steal it and take credit for it himself. And he's going to go out and sell it. So at that point, the movie shifts from being about her completing her dad's work to her stealing her dad's work back and getting revenge on this guy.
Yeah.
This involves a lot of like elaborate attempts to do this. One of which is taking the face of the student that he is sleeping with, who also happens to be the mean girl that has primarily been giving her shit besides her cousin.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to decide that we're gonna kill her and take her face and then like try to get in with the fucking teacher so that we can steal our research back. But so many things go wrong along the way because she's kind of flying by the seat of her pants.
Yeah, she doesn't really have time to come up with like a complex, well thought out plan.
And the reoccurring problem with every plan she has is that ultimately she has no social experience.
Yeah.
She's been such a antisocial shut-in her whole life that actually having to pretend to be the flamboyant mean girl
Yeah,
is a challenge.
Proves a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Not to mention having to act like she's attracted to the teacher enough to get in close with him, you know? And at one point, she actually does end up sleeping with him.
Yeah.
Much to her horror. So, like, she goes to some fucking, like, depraved depths to get what she wants here. But it is cathartic when she leaves the teacher to the fate that befell her dad. One of the things that happens with this grafting thing and that she had to kind of, like, fix and figure out, like, what went wrong with her dad's research, once it starts grafting to his skin, it doesn't stop. So he tries to, like, graft away his scar, but it keeps growing.
Yeah, and it grows over his mouth.
Grows over his mouth, grows over his nose, grows over his ears, can't hear, can't see, can't taste, can't breathe.
Yeah.
And so she ultimately leaves the fucking teacher to that fate.
Yep.
In a very cathartic way. She can't escape being punished for her own sins throughout the movie too, though.
You're right.
Because along the way, like, she killed the one girl's boyfriend. I think that woman was more of an accident.
That was more of an accident.
But she still happened.
Yeah.
Still happened. She also killed the one girl among the mean girls who actually wasn't really mean and was actually trying to reach out to her.
Yeah. That was the one where you're like, okay, that's where you went too far.
And denounces her friend. That was the threshold moment, right?
Yeah.
The moment she kills that character is the moment where you're like, oh, you've gone all over the deep end.
Yeah. You've killed an innocent.
You've now reached the point where the ending of this movie can no longer be your success.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be about your downfall. Like in The Substance.
Yeah.
When she tries to like fuse the two things together and becomes the monster.
Yeah.
Like, we're now going to have that moment. And she does end up ultimately having that moment because she ends up on the run from the cops. There's this homeless guy that she's befriended.
Yeah, who's like a burn victim.
Yeah. And he was like trying to get her to understand throughout most of the movie, no, you're beautiful the way you are.
Yeah.
Like, you're fine. Like, that scar, it's barely even fucking noticeable.
Yeah. Look at me.
Look at me.
You know? Like,
I'm a fucking
got no
burn
lips.
victim. I look like Freddy fucking Krueger over here.
I look like Freddy Krueger on a bad day.
You have a scar on there, and like, you might not like it, but you can literally cover that up with makeup.
Yeah.
I can't cover this up with makeup.
Yeah, that'd be too much. You know how long I had to sit in a chair to look like this?
But there's this like tragic element where you can see how far like removed she's become over the course of the movie. The more she face swaps, not body swaps.
Yeah.
And she can no longer communicate with him anymore. And ultimately at the end of the movie, she tries to run into his arms. And he, being the nice guy he is, like decides to hide her from the police. But she has a vial of the chemical stuff that she had created for this grafting process, and it breaks in her hand, goes all over her and the homeless guy, and they fuse together.
Yeah.
They fuse together into one like mound monstrosity under this fucking blanket. It's very much like The Substance. Now, it doesn't go as far as The Substance.
No. Substance goes to 11.
Substance has that like bloodbath at the end of the movie, right? This movie like stops. If The Substance had stopped right after she turned into a monster, it doesn't go the extra mile.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, it's still a very solid movie. I am curious, given what happens earlier in the movie, if they're all gonna just start rotting after a certain point, because
yeah, right.
Because one of the problems with her face swapping that happens is that she's able to graft the skin, but she's not able to stop the skin from like rotting off after a while.
Yeah. Eventually it comes off.
So I don't know if that's just because the skin itself is rotting and so it starts to die, or if the actual chemicals that she created starts to rot itself.
Right. Very well acted. Like thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So yeah, with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jacula?
Oh, you can find me and this beautiful face here on YouTube every weeknight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or rather starting at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we stream for at least 2 hours, often longer. And you can also follow me on Blue Sky at Count Jacula. Just look for Count Jacula on Blue Sky, you'll find me. What about you?
Y'all know me, I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on various social media platforms, but these days I primarily use Blue Sky, so go follow me on there. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages, and remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag FusionHa. Use the hashtag FusionHa, because that's basically what happens at the end of this movie, except it goes poorly.
Yeah.
And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.